Our environment is increasingly deteriorating as people continue to contaminate the air with pollutants. Pollutants that include carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, lead, and ground level ozone. Our atmosphere is composed of a mixture of gases that includes oxygen. Oxygen is only about 21% of the atmosphere, and yet it is an important gas. Unfortunately, oxygen gas mixes with a lot of pollutants, affecting the proper functioning of the respiratory system. When the respiratory system is mentioned, people generally think of breathing, but breathing is only one of the activities of the respiratory system. Breathing is the physical act of inhaling and exhaling. It is also used to describe the movement of gases in and out of the body. This is a process associated with respiration. Respiration is the process of converting sugar with the presence of oxygen to produce useful energy for the cell's use. Breathing allows oxygen to diffuse into the bloodstream to be distributed by the circulatory system. The body cells need a continuous supply of oxygen for the metabolic processes that are needed to maintain life. The respiratory system works with the circulatory system to provide this oxygen and to remove the waste products of metabolism. The major function of the respiratory system is to supply the body with oxygen and dispose of carbon dioxide. To accomplish this function, at least 4 processes, collectively called respiration, must happen. First, there is pulmonary ventilation. This is the movement of air into and out of the lungs so that the gases there are continuously changed and refreshed. This is commonly called breathing. There is also external respiration, which is the movement of oxygen from the lungs to the blood and of carbon dioxide from the blood to the lungs. The third process is the transport of respiratory gases. This describes the movement of oxygen from the lungs to the cells of the body and of carbon dioxide from the cells to the lungs. This transport is accomplished by the cardiovascular system using blood as the transporting fluid. The fourth process is internal respiration. This is the movement of oxygen from the blood to the cells and of carbon dioxide from the cells to the blood. The upper respiratory system of the human body consists of the nose, the nasal cavity, the pharynx, and the larynx. The nose works as a major part of the respiratory system, in addition to being the primary organ of smell. Inside the nose is the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity is the space between the nostrils and technically is the start of the respiratory tract. It is separated by the nasal septum. Inside the cavity is a sticky mucous membrane lining that traps dust particles. Tiny hairs, known as cilia, help move the trapped dust particles to the nose to be sneezed or blown out. The pharynx, or the throat, is a structure that functions in both respiration and digestion in the human body. It is located behind the nose and the mouth. It is where the food and air passageways crosses, so a flap of tissue called epiglottis is needed to momentarily close when one swallows. The larynx, or the voice box, is a hollow, tubular structure connected to the top of the trachea. It serves 3 important functions in humans: breathing, producing sound, and preventing the passage of food and other foreign particles in the lower respiratory tract. The lower respiratory system, on the other hand, consists of the trachea, the bronchi, the lungs, and the diaphragm. The trachea, also called the windpipe, is located just below the larynx. It serves as the main airway through which air passes from the upper respiratory tract to the lower respiratory tract, particularly the lungs. As you can see, it extends from the larynx to the bronchus. There are 2 main bronchial tubes, the left and right bronchi. These tubes connect to the lungs. The bronchi carry air between the trachea and the lungs. Each bronchus branches into smaller secondary bronchi, and the secondary bronchi still branches into smaller tertiary bronchi. The smallest bronchi branch into very small tubules called bronchioles. The lungs are the largest organs of the respiratory tract. They are suspended within the pleural cavity of the thorax. The lungs are surrounded by two thin membranes called pleura, which then secretes a fluid that allows the lungs to move freely within the pleural cavity. This is necessary so that the lungs can expand and contract during breathing. Each of the two lungs is divided into sections. These are called lobes, and they are separated from each other by connective tissues. The right lung is larger and contains 3 lobes. The left lung is smaller and contains only 2 lobes. The smaller left lung allows room for the heart, which is just left of the center of the chest. Lung tissue consists mainly of alveoli. The tiniest bronchioles end in the alveolar ducts, which terminate in clusters of microscopic air sacs, which are also called alveoli. There are around 480 million of these in your lungs, which allow oxygen and carbon dioxide to move between the lungs and the bloodstream. In the breathing process, a muscle contracts and relaxes to allow air into the lungs. The diaphragm, the main respiratory muscle, lies below the lungs and separates the thorax from the abdomen. During inspiration or inhaling, it contracts and flattens, increasing the vertical diameter of the thoracic cavity. This causes lungs to expand, and air is drawn in. During expiration or exhaling, the diaphragm passively relaxes and returns to its original dome shape. This reduces the volume of the thoracic cavity. With the help of all the parts mentioned, the respiratory system can efficiently supply the body with oxygen and dispose of carbon dioxide. Now that we know the significance of the respiratory system to the human body, let us ask ourselves, how can we make our respiratory system healthy?